We are now going to do a poetic knowledge panel. And I want to just ask real quickly, how many of you have sat in on one of these at a CiRCE Institute conference before? How many of you stayed awake through the whole thing? Okay. These are hard to do. I just want to say that right up front. These are hard to do. And here's why. The poetic knowledge concept goes way back. It goes back to the beginning of time. But in terms of it being formalized, at least as early as Thomas Aquinas was explaining that there's a certain kind of knowing, and it's a precognitive knowing, and it's an experiential knowing, pre-analytical. It's not a scholarly knowing at all. It's the knowledge that a child has when he plays in the sandbox. It's what, I think it's like what you described with Lectio in the session today. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to have, following as well as we can, following a pattern established by John Sr. at the Institute for the Humanities. Is that the right name? Integrated Humanities program at UK, which was so successful that the University of Kansas had to shut it down because it was having too positive effect on the students. And that is a literal truth. We're going to try to imitate something that they did among friends. And what it boils down to is this. The three of us are going to try to experience together a poem. Now, to be very clear, you don't have to use a poem to have poetic knowledge. We just are because it's convenient. The poem that we're going to read is Siren Song by Margaret Atwood. And then we're also going to have we're going to read a poem in the Odyssey in which Homer sings the song of the siren in the Odyssey. We'll be using Emily Wilson's translation, and Christopher has written the music for it. Now, a couple important things about this. You are prohibited from taking notes. Yes, you are. You are prohibited from taking notes.
Not me.
And if Christopher does, he's out. So, Josh, if you want to join us, just watch Christopher. Okay. And the reason is because you don't take notes when you're having an experience. That's analytical. You do that afterward. If this discussion becomes scholarly, I will either get mad at these two or leave. It's not going to be an analytical discussion. It's going to be an experience of the poem. Now, it may be because we're friends and we like poetry, and I've read a couple other poems in the course of our days. It may be that while we're talking about it, we will accidentally weave some insight or some concept into it. But if it's coming from the outside and being imposed on the poem, I'll get really mad. I might even just start pouting in front of you all. This is going to be three friends having an experience of a poem. Okay? And the poem is, do all of you have your notebooks put away? Is this the best conference ever or what? First of all, you got to sleep through the morning session, right? And now you have to close your notebooks. This is a dream conference. Okay. Glory. So the reason we're going to sing Siren Song, we're going to rather discuss Siren Song, is because this is the song everyone wants to learn.
This is the one song everyone would like to learn.
Oh.
The song that is irresistible. The song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons, even though they see the beached skulls. The song that nobody knows, because everyone who has heard it is dead. And the others can't remember. Shall I tell you the secret? And if I do, will you get me out of this birdsuit? I don't enjoy it here, squatting on this island, looking picturesque and mythical. I don't enjoy singing this trio, fatal and valuable. I will tell the secret to you, only to you. Come closer. This song is a cry for help. Help me! Only you can. You are unique at last. Alas, it is a boring song, but it works every time.
Remember, they're not here. It's just the three of us.
I was thinking about going to the islands, actually.
You do look kind of bleachy. Do we have two microphones?
Oh, no.
Christopher. We sit around our living rooms with microphones all the time.
Well, I'm thinking...
You might want to use it.
Oh, testing 1, 2. Odysseus, come here. You are well known for many stories, the glory of the Greeks. The glory of the Greeks. Now stop your ship and listen to our voices, all who pass here, here, here. Honeyed song poured forth from our mouths. The music brings them joy. That's not as persuasive, but somehow in Homer's mind, it was enough that it would stop people. It would stop their ships. They would put down anchor. They would turn their attention away from whatever their obligation was, whatever their voyage was, and they would listen to the honeyed song. But then there's the promise. The promise from the sirens is maybe not some kind of pleasurable experience that seems to be sexualized by so much of the reading of the sirens, but knowledge. All who come this way, they acquire knowledge. How does he put it? Go forth with greater knowledge, because we know everything. The Trojans and Greeks, the Greeks and Trojans have suffered in Troy, and then the sirens go on to say, we know everything. We know everything, whatever happens anywhere on earth. So the temptation seems to be to know something that nobody else knows.
Maybe. But it also says, all those who pass this way hear honeyed song. And who cares what the song's about if it's honeyed?
Yeah, there's the honeyed song maybe makes you stop. So there's got to be some signage that gets you into the car lot. But then there's the salesman.
I wonder if I agree with you on that. I have to think about it. What do you think? My opinion is that music itself is killer.
I find it really ironic that it's a song that allures him, because knowledge should be this good thing, and yet here we have this song that's taking him away from where he's supposed to be. So it's enchanting in a negative way, whereas we usually think of music as, it brings forth something good in you, it evokes the better part of you, it touches your soul, it reminds you what it means to be a human being. And here the
You
song
listen
is
to the
like,
radio?
I actually don't.
I know, it's years ago.
Yeah.
It's a generational thing.
Yeah. I'm getting old. I don't know. That kind of knowledge they're talking about here, like when we think of knowledge and what it should be, is like intimate, and when you say you know somebody, like in the scriptures, like they know each other. Like there's some sort of knowing that they're singing to him that's inviting into something that he wants deeply, but it's going to take him away from where he should be. And that's, when we think of knowledge, we usually think of it as like taking us where we want to be. And the music that sings this great knowledge should be leading us somewhere good. So it's kind of an ironic, maybe scary invitation in that way.
I can't help thinking about the way we use honey in other ways. Do you know what a honey trap is, or a honey pot? It's
a pot full of honey, right?
Used among apparently in espionage. A honey pot is usually a woman who will attract some man into some kind of liaison in order to get something that's wanted and needed. That'd be very destructive to the person who falls prey.
See, so again, we're looking in this case, and by the way, if you're wondering, it is in your your notebooks. You are allowed to look at it. You just can't write about it. It's
It's an
Odysseus.
important qualification.
Right. This is Odysseus, right? And Odysseus isn't tempted by the same things that the common people are tempted by. You're not going to get a honeypot getting him off track. He's going home to Penelope.
Like several different times.
CiRCE, CiRCE.
Hold on.
Yeah, like,
Can you guys not
Calypso,
distinguish
CiRCE.
between women and goddesses?
Your
How
organization
many of
should
you-
know.
How many of you have been? How many of you have been in the presence of a goddess? That counts. That counts.
There's a goddess in the room, ladies and gentlemen.
You're not allowed to disobey the goddesses, okay? But Odysseus is not going to fall for a woman, a normal, everyday woman.
But the sirens are not ordinary women.
No, they're singing.
Well, that's not the only distinction between them.
What I'm saying here is that he's talking about the honeypot as a
Oh.
trap for a spy, okay? Odysseus wouldn't be trapped by a honeypot, okay? If he's going to be trapped, in my opinion, he's going to be trapped by a siren, okay? If he's going to be trapped at all, he's going to be trapped by a person, by somebody who can sing perfectly. And I think the music is essential to this. And I think the music itself, without words, gives a knowledge, right? But he's also going to need conscious knowledge attached to it. That's the only way you're going to get Odysseus. So this isn't what they'd sing if I was going by. Like here they'd be saying, we got free TVs. Or Beatles CDs.
So you're looking at like the particularity of what she's saying to Odysseus.
I am, because
Yeah.
in the Margaret, and everybody knows Margaret Atwood is way better than Homer. Okay, I get that. But one of the things that I was comparing here between Siren Song by Atwood and Siren Song by, what's his name, Homer, is that really her Siren Song is universal, right? She says at the end, "You are unique, at last," and then she said, I love that, "At last, alas." Mm-hmm. Okay, it is a boring song. Right, not the one she sang to Odysseus, but this is a boring song. In other words, I keep singing this over and over and over again, and people keep falling for it because they're gullible, they're vulnerable. It's easy, right? And I see it. Well, maybe I'll give a command performance if I'm commanded to later. But she says, "Alas, it is a boring song, but it works every time." Mm-hmm. Right. In other words, we fall for the same nonsense. Odysseus, in my opinion, doesn't.
Well, he doesn't because he's tied to a mast.
No, but they don't even. My point is, they don't even try to sing a common song to him. They don't sing a boring song to him. This is a song for Odysseus right here.
So forget the melody for a moment. The content of the song concerns you. Are you saying that the content of the song is an invitation that's particularly customized to get Odysseus's attention?
Yes, the music and the content, but we can't hear the music.
To me, it seems like it's going to pretend to be specified to him, but it's kind of like what you were saying this morning, where there's something inside us that all longs for the same thing. I think the sirens are touching on what every single person longs for, which is like, you, just you, the focus just on you. And everybody wants to hear that. They want someone just to focus on them and look to them and tell them how special and wonderful and excellent they are. I mean, his song, yes, even in the Odyssey version, it's, what are they singing about? The Greeks and Trojans. These are eternal beings who've been exiled onto this rock. They could sing about anything. Do you really think they're singing about the Greeks and the Trojans? In this
That's
case,
a
they're
good
only
point.
singing about that for him.
Because
yeah.
Odysseus was just coming back from that war.
Yeah.
So it does appear to be customized.
Yes, customized, but always still universal. Like, I'm going to talk to you about you.
That's perfect. I agree with you.
Okay.
It's customized, but it's universal.
Yes.
And the reason is because we're all the same, but we're also all different.
Mm-hmm.
We all want somebody to speak powerfully into our experience and confirm us as approved, important, meaningful, and maybe even unique. Although I think I trip over that word a bit. Do we really want to be unique? And in
Yes
what
and no.
sense yes, in what sense no?
Right. What do you think?
Well, I think yes and no.
That's a very unique answer.
Thank you. It both is and is not.
Wow, I don't know what to say.
Even when she says you are unique at last, and this song works every time, but it doesn't. We know in this instance, it doesn't actually work for him. Like, he doesn't fall for the siren song. Again, because he's on the mast, but like, this is one case where it didn't work.
And it didn't work because he thought ahead.
Yes, or he was, he's warned ahead.
And yes,
Yeah.
by CiRCE, the goddess.
Yeah.
Yes, listen when CiRCE speaks.
So this made me think about other places where we've been warned ahead. I couldn't help about thinking of Proverbs, the proverbial wisdom about the temptations that are coming to young men. So I'm thinking of Proverbs 7. I wonder if either of you thought about that. You simple ones, come, come, I have prepared my bed with cinnamon, aloes, and spice, etc. But Solomon is, if it's Solomon or the Koheleth, is writing to warn ahead. There's going to be these siren calls coming. If we could we move to another topic for just a moment? When you recited the beached skulls, the song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons, even though they see the beached skulls. Well, I wanted to ask a question about that. Why are there beached skulls on the shore? Are people being murdered?
Right. The sirens are eating them up, aren't they? Aren't these just cannibalistic bird-like women? That's my assumption.
It might be. I thought that they leap overboard and then they
Drown.
They either drown or they can't get away.
I guess because it's paired with Scylla and Charybdis, there's this idea of cannibalism, all like this trio of cannibalism. Then in my mind, it's like
You may be right.
associated. It doesn't mean it's
Does anybody
there,
know? Do the sirens actually eat them? Because they have human
No.
faces.
Someone knows.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So how do they die?
How interesting that the person answering this question is named after a bird. Sorry, go on.
No, I know that was. That's what I assumed with the beach skulls was just. And even if they're not literally cannibalistic, there's this metaphorical sense in which they're cannibalistic, in which they really derive their existence from taking other people's existence.
That's excellent. Hang on just a second. Were you done saying what you were trying to say before I became a creep? Oh, and it was you, wasn't it? You're not even named after a bird. Sorry. Sorry?
I named my children after birds.
Right. 3 of them. It's just getting deep.
It's kind of like lotus eaters. They just sit there until they waste away. They just listen and waste away.
They can't leave.
Enamored by them.
It's like being at a Pink Floyd concert.
That idea of like the wasting away made me think of I can't help Flannery O'Connor always comes to mind. But in Flannery O'Connor, when there's characters who think they've discovered knowledge, they become very parasitic and nihilistic, and they don't produce anything. So you have like Holga, right? She becomes destructive. She becomes everything is negative. She's not going to be fruitful. She's not going to help with the plant life. She's not going to have her own children, right? Or Mrs. May's sons, they just sit there and take from other people. They exploit other people. Like they don't use their knowledge. It doesn't bear fruit, right? In O'Connor. So you think about that in terms here, like these characters, these women could be drawing people to them and like bear fruit and multiply, and they don't. They tear apart and destroy and take instead.
Yeah, possibly. The qualifier is that they're not entirely human. Like, they do have bird bodies.
Yeah, right.
Feathery
Right.
maniacs.
But we also have the Minotaur. There's ways around this in
Yes.
Greek myth.
Well, true
Yeah.
enough. True enough. Yeah.
Is that actually, in the Odyssey? I can't remember, because in this passage they're not described as having bird feathers. So, but in the larger Greek
Margaret,
tradition,
who's inspired, tells us that they're feathery.
Well, she doesn't like her feathers, by the way. Why doesn't she like her feathers?
Oh, I love that part. That to me, that's one of the best lines, is where she says, "Can you get me out of this bird suit?" It's like the de-armoring of her. I love that. Like, she's like pretending to like bear herself, but it's such a pretense, right? Like, I'm not going to look dangerous to you. This is just a facade, right? Like, don't be confused. Anything you've heard about me is just wrong. I really don't enjoy this. You know, this is not the way that I want to look.
And I don't like my two friends very much either.
Yeah, don't look at them like they're going to help me just eat you alive. Like, instead, I don't like them. Just come to me, you know?
What does that remind you of? That move on the part of someone saying, you know, I'm really not this. Mm-hmm. And by the way, these people who are with me, I'm really not like them either. What does that conjure up?
Nothing for me.
What?
What about you? You obviously have something in your mind.
Well, what I have in mind is pretty pedestrian, so I'm embarrassed to share it.
Well,
so I
let's
thought
go for
maybe
a walk then.
We'd have something deeper? No, we can't help you. Go ahead.
Start where we are.
I said pedestrian. He said, well, why don't you go for a walk? I'm thinking of the car lot, the used car lot.
Really?
Yeah. Have you ever encountered a used car salesman who says something like, hey, can you help me out here? You know, I really, and, you know, this is, you know, my real job. You know, I'm actually, I'm an entrepreneur. You know, I'm working on some stuff here. But, yeah, I'm working here for a while. And, I mean, I've heard these kind of phrases at other places in my life. Sadly, the only one I could conjure up is the used car lot.
I mean, every con begins that way, right? You tell somebody that I'm not a con artist, right? Like, you name what they could be thinking, right? Like, really, I'm just somebody trying to get by. I happen to have a talent of telling people what they want to hear. It's something I've just always been good at. I don't know how to get around it, right? It's the con.
And then the unique part comes. Hey, this car was made for you. Oh, I mean, I can just tell.
For you.
Yes.
Only for you.
Yeah. Hasn't that happened to you? Have you ever been told that you're unique when there's maybe some transaction in mind?
Never positively. I think it was you, in fact, that told me.
A lot of customers come in here, but none like you. You're unique, so get out.
That was more it, yeah. That started in kindergarten for me. First grade I ever got kicked out of. There is a massive con going on, though. You're right. So, Jessica, I have to ask you. You picked this one. We blame her. Okay, just be clear. Wasn't me. It was these two feathery maniacs. Actually, I just fired a bullet I wanted to use later. But why did you pick this one?
Because my kids were watching Magic School Bus upstairs, and you called in the middle of the afternoon, and this is the first poem that came to my head.
So it's kind of pedestrian.
Literally just, hey, I remember this poem.
Yeah, you see who I'm stuck with.
Yeah, this is, there was not
Car
a lot of deep
lots
registry.
and Magic School Bus.
But I think I have some of these. The reason that they come to mind is because they are doing something, like they're here. Whereas if you ask me other poems I taught last semester, I don't remember them as well as this one just came to my head, right? So there is something to the fact that this is the one that came up for me.
Do you think, the reason I wanted to ask you this, because I'm wondering, do you think that Margaret Atwood gets being conned or how to con? In other words, Homer understands everything perfectly and has multiple generations filtered into his poetry, and so if he's going to con you, he's going to get you. Margaret Atwood is a named poet in an individualistic age and made up this poem herself. Is she insightful? Do you think she's insightful?
Yes. Even with that prologue, I'm going to say yes. What you also have to remember about Homer's character singing his song, saying that these sirens are singing this song. Yes, there's layers to that, but I think she does such a great job of pulling back all those layers and then starting her song. Right, so she doesn't do the frame within the frame motion, but still the song by itself can be looked at under the light, right? even without the layers, as you mentioned.
Even what?
Without those layers,
Without those layers.
right? There's still something to the song.
Do you think this song is seductive? Do you think it's effective?
I don't know. Seductive in the sense that it's getting you to that knowledge or to that question about what you know and why you want to know certain things, and what songs pull you in, right?
So you're reminding me that Odysseus is a con man.
Yes.
He himself is a con man.
Yes.
So the sirens are trying to con the conner, right? And I'm thinking about
And sorry to interrupt you,
No.
partially, but he's singing about the sirens conning him while he's at a fundraising banquet on the island of Phaeacia, trying to make them see how smart he is so that he can get their money from them.
exactly. He's always
And it works.
He's always working a con, and they try to con him, but he's already, because of CiRCE's forewarning,
Never forget
planned a
that.
con of their conning, right? They've got all these connings going on, and then there's Dante who brings this up in the Inferno when he has Diomedes and what's his name?
Ulysses,
Odysseus. They come up together, and then he tries to give an account of what happened here. Odysseus does, and he tries to con Virgil and Dante, and does a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
Right, he explains why he did it, why he sailed past the Pillars of Hercules, and the speech that he gave to the men. And he basically said, in the speech that isn't in the Odyssey, but in the speech in Dante, he said something like this: "Men were not like brutes. Weren't we made to venture forth to come to understand virtue and knowledge?"
But it wasn't virtue, it was vice and knowledge.
Yes,
and
it was.
That's the key. I think that's what's key about this is the siren song is for the wrong kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? It's a leading astray from the kind of knowledge we're supposed to be longing towards and moving towards, and it's moving backwards.
So what's the difference?
So a knowledge that rises you higher versus a cleverness in the world, right? The kind of knowledge that would give you power over other people, the kind of knowledge that would help you be a better con artist, the kind of knowledge that would detract from who you are and make you skulls on a beach. Yeah.
Is it just an appeal to one's uniqueness? Is it appeal to help someone, convince someone that they are special and will have special knowledge so that they can have special powers over others in the world? Is that what makes, how else would you describe this special knowledge that is being offered from the sirens?
I mean, I think it's infernal, right? I mean, when you're bringing up the idea of going into the inferno, and I think about what Dante was like when he was in hell and what songs led him astray, they were songs that gave him the wrong kind of knowledge of things, right? And in limbo, he gets, hey, I'm here, I'm one of the six, I'm great. Like, this is kind of a worldly way of seeing yourself, right? Or later when he is talking to Bruno Latini, and he's like, you're going to be a star. It's that kind of knowledge that makes you chase all the wrong things, right? It's functioning by a worldly imagination instead of a higher one.
And you're reminding me that I think he's in that circle of hell that's fraud. So he's there with the conners and the fraudsters, and Dante himself is, I guess what you're saying is Dante himself is being tempted to a kind of fraud.
That's so interesting because when Dante first enters the Inferno, he faints out of sentiment, really, when he gets defrauded, frankly, by Paolo and Francesca. He's so moved by this charming romantic love, adulterous, fornication and all that. He just passes out of emotion for that.
Yeah.
And he has to go through deeper and deeper into self-discovery, which is what hell is. He goes deeper and deeper into self-discovery, and he reaches the level of the frauds. And finally, apparently, he sticks close enough to Virgil, at least, that he can handle it better. Right? So he doesn't pass out, right? Is that correct? He does not pass out when
No, but at the same time, he does. I mean, he gets led astray all the way through hell. It's actually not like he still falls for a siren in purgatory. And Virgil's the one who has to unmask the siren.
What siren?
Canto 19. When they're going up purgatory and he falls asleep and he has a vision of this ugly, hideous woman moving towards him. But the more that he looks at her, he gives her power of speech. And she begins to sing. And as she sings, she becomes more lovely to him until Virgil steps in and, like, basically, in the person wakes him up, but tears off her outer clothing, right?
Tears off the birdsuit.
Tears off the birdsuit.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't think about that till you just brought up Dante.
Because now you said that as she sings, she becomes more lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that takes me back to my contention at the beginning. The music is just as important as the lyrics. In fact, probably more important.
Mm-hmm.
And that music gives you a knowledge. It doesn't need lyrics to give you a knowledge of certain things. I think John Hodges kind of at least hinted at that at this morning. Music would be one of the most profound ways by which we are deceived as human beings. I think I made this comment that Lucifer, if I understand correctly, Lucifer, before he fell, was the lead conductor of the heavenly orchestra. He was a music major. He was in charge of it and organized it over. He knows how music works. He knows how to use it. And Plato helps us understand what Lucifer's up to. So when we look at songs, the music itself matters, and yet here we are reading poems on pages that don't have any music to them, and it's all connected to your question. That's why I'm wandering here a little bit, but I'm not. It's all connected to your question about what kind of knowledge are we talking about, and it's a knowledge that goes. It's more like poetic knowledge, but infected. Right? It's a precognitive knowledge. It's a knowledge that we're not even aware we're getting. And there's some actual experience that's going on, some actual encounter that's giving us joy, but she says the music brings them joy, and they go on their way with greater knowledge. But then injected into that experience is some kind of deception, some kind of vanity, let's say. And then so that brings up this question. If they're so skilled at conning, does that mean we should live in terror of being conned? Or is there something really simple going on here? Right? Is the deception actually not very deep at all? Because she says it's a boring song, but it works every time.
Well, and again, the con artist is going to tell you what it is, but not tell you what it is. So I think you have to read, is it really a boring song? Like you have to, I mean, you can't, it's kind of like you can't trust your narrator, right?
So, right.
And why does it work every time?
See, I think that what happens is, can I recite it now? Can I try it?
Yes, go for it.
Because I think she's doing something, she's changing her audience.
I'm sorry I interrupted you
You did?
and recited it. You could have recited
Oh,
it. You
that
can have
one.
you can
Right,
have your
yeah,
moment
yeah,
now.
right.
Yeah,
That
go
was
for
really
it.
mean of you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But since then, I've had a chance to memorize it.
Okay.
So it's something like this. Okay, so she's sitting on the rocks, and the ships are going by, and she says, will you help me really quietly so nobody hears me if I forget lines?
Line. Just say line, and we'll give it to you.
And if I miss a word or two, everybody just ignore that and forgive me, okay? This is the song everyone wants to learn. This is the song that is irresistible. What's the next line? This is the one song that
That's
what I almost said.
And the only reason
You know what? Rather than embarrass myself, I'll keep this handy. Oh, go ahead.
Well, so one of the reasons I would want to point that out is there's several reasons. All words matter in a poem, right? Because you have like a certain, you're paying attention. And here you have, this is the one song everyone would like to learn, right? And so you have this, she has a song in the way that she is choosing the words.
Yeah, that's good.
And if we mess up that song, we're missing what she's doing.
Right, but I'm not a siren.
Right. So yes, you can skip words if you want to.
No, I won't. That's really helpful for me because I was going to ask you if we ever had a time for it, whether this is actually a good poem poetically.
Yeah.
Because I'm not very good at reading poems, as like the music of it. Mm-hmm. This is the one song everyone would like to learn, the song that is irresistible. The song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons, even though they see the beach skulls. The song the song nobody knows, because everyone who knows it is dead. And the rest can't remember. Shall I tell you the secret? And if I do, will you help me get out of this bird suit? I don't enjoy it here. Sorry. I don't enjoy it here squatting in this island, looking picturesque and mythical with these two feathery maniacs. I don't enjoy singing this trio, fatal and valuable. I will tell the secret to you. To you. Only to you. Come closer. Come closer. You've heard this one before, haven't you? This song is a cry for help. Help me. Only you. Only you can. You are unique. At last. Alas, it is a boring song, but it works every time. Ladies and gentlemen, Junius Johnson.
He's died twice and still lives to tell about it.
Yeah. So, sorry, but what I think, the way I take it is that when she says you are unique, that's at least suggested that at that point the person approaches, is done for, and then she goes at last, and then turns to the others, the feathery maniacs, and says, alas, and then they know it's a boring song, but it works every time. Right? That's why I think it might actually be a boring song that they're sick of singing, but it works every time. But with Odysseus, there's a challenge, right? I offer that as a possible interpretation of the great Margaret Atwood's Siren Song.
Well, I'm thinking of these sirens are bent on destruction, bent on hurting, killing others, and it reminds me of the demonic.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned Lucifer already. That there's a kind of deception and masquerade that we know the demonic realm is all about. That's alluring and deceiving. I'm even thinking of the garden scene, but all the way through, right? And then I'm thinking of the contrast of the angels. If there were others that would sing to us, who would sing to us a song that we should hear and that we could learn from, it would be Holy God, Holy Immortal, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, or Holy, Holy, Holy. It would be that vision from Isaiah 7 and other places. Are the angels ministering spirits? Are they a kind of contrast to the sirens that we have here? And is that a healthy comparison for Christians to pursue reading a text like this? Or is that an unnatural imposition of the onto the text?
I mean, it depends if you're interpreting the text or experiencing the text or thinking about the text and then applying it to your life. It doesn't trouble me that we talk about it in our living room like this.
Well, we know, the ancient Christians, the church has always wrestled with the Odyssey and found it in many ways a rich source of instruction, and viewed it as a kind of yearning after, but not finding until Christ was born. So I find it interesting. I wonder what the connection to the demonic might be if we were to try to tease that out.
Did you want to address that?
You can talk about demons, but I did want to jump in a second.
Please.
Are you sure? So I was thinking about whether the song is leading us astray or, Homer's song and what it's doing. But what's great about that, and I'll contrast it with Atwood in a second, but what's great about Homer's song is that it shows you how The same thing that the sirens are singing is what Odysseus is singing in this setting, where he is trying to perform a con.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the song that Homer is singing is not that song.
How do you know?
At the end of the day, the song is about homecoming and return. The whole song overall, when you read all of Homer, is that these songs lead a certain direction. They lead for the entire group of, the whole island gets destroyed, right? I mean, the ships, Poseidon destroys everything. That song ultimately is a very destructive song. Ultimately, and when you see Ulysses in hell, and he's continued going out on those journeys away from home towards a knowledge of vice, it becomes a very destructive song. Whereas Homer's is go home.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's kind of that is the quest at the end, is a homecoming, and that becomes a truer song.
I like that very much. We have a sign on the front door of our house that somebody who visited us gave us. I can't remember what it says, though. Oh, yeah. May your journey always lead you home. So whenever I walk out the door, I see a sign that says, may your journey always leave you home. And then there's a chain outside the door that attaches itself to my leg automatically.
So Odysseus is charged, therefore, and becomes an example of an unrighteous, misdirected quest for forbidden knowledge. And
He does in Dante, you mean?
yes.
Yeah.
And this, and I think that's worth thinking about. I think it's here in the siren call, at least implicitly. What is this knowledge that Odysseus is going to lean into and want to seek that's going to pull him away from his homecoming? And we see lots of delays throughout the Odyssey of, he shouldn't have followed the smoke when he landed on CiRCE's island, but he did. He kept wanting to venture forth and venture forth. So Dante, I think, is right to say, well, you can imagine him venturing forth past the Straits of Gibraltar, going beyond where ships have gone, because that's the kind of person Odysseus is, and I think he's right about that. And I think there's an application here to education, therefore. What does it mean for us to try to bring knowledge to students, or to help them to, what is knowledge for a Christian student? What's off limits? What's in limits? And what do we call this thing that is a seeking after forbidden knowledge? Is it seeking knowledge that you shouldn't have at this time, but could have later, or is it seeking knowledge that you should never have and never seek? But what does it mean to guide students to listen to the right voices and to the right songs?
So in the great courses, the Dante great courses, Bill Cook, and what's the other guy's name?
That other guy.
The other guy. I feel so bad. This is being recorded. Thank you, other guy, for all the great work you just did. I love those Dante great
Since
courses.
it's being recorded, I'll say it's a very good course
It
from
is
the
a
great
really good
courses.
course. But one of the things they say when they get to that portion with Ulysses is that it's the difference between reading case studies about people who had drug addictions, or chasing after and trying all the drugs for yourself so you know firsthand. Right? And even when you think about it in terms of education, I hate the argument when people don't want to go to our classical school because their kids are going to go learn about drugs in the public school. So that,
People actually say that?
yeah. People have literally said that to me.
And they're not hippies?
No, and their kids are going to learn and explore, and so that they know the evils of those things, right?
So they want their children to eat at the knowledge of good and evil?
In a sense, right? So that they know those things, so that they're not going to be taken advantage of later in life, I guess. I mean, I'm not one of those parents, so I can't justify those choices, but it's a completely different way of looking at education. What we're doing here with Siren Song, compare it to Hopkins. We were talking about Hopkins earlier, right? Hopkins is teaching you who God is, right? Glory be to God for dappled things. He's teaching you about the song that is already in the world that you're trying to get in touch with. It's a lifting up. That doesn't mean there's not a place for the kind of songs that show you the demonic or that show you the vice so that you don't have to learn it for yourself. What she's singing here is a song that the world is singing to you all the time. So even though it doesn't play the same role in your life as Hopkins poetry, it's still warning you not to end up a beach skull.
So could we return back to this question then? Why does it always work? It works every time. Why does it work every time?
Doesn't it work every time, like every day for us? Like this song wins over my life like 50 times a day that I have to repent and then lift up to a new song. I mean, as much as you can, you try to replace those songs with better songs, but they're still there.
I think that's exceedingly well said. And what struck me as soon as you asked the question was another way of asking is, why are we so vulnerable?
Yes.
Why are we so gullible? And if I can be forgiven for this, this all ties back in my mind to the Genesis 3 and even the Genesis 11 and then Genesis 2, where we were created with such honor. We were given this dignity, but we've lost it. And when you're created to be, well, when you're created to eat and you don't have food, you get hungry. You'll eat anything. And we were created for eternal glory. And we know, we feel ashamed. I think the most defining characteristic of the human being is a sense of shame. We all wear clothes, and we don't just wear them just to define our role. Right?
So this
We're covering our
is
shame.
great because what you're pointing out is that having been created in the image of likeness of God and in His presence, we were meant to be known, loved, approved, and celebrated without shame.
Right.
And so we therefore desire a kind of glory, an appropriate kind of glory,
Right.
that even the Lord would share with us, right? Say, this is the Weight of Glory essay by C.S. Lewis, that we all long to hear those words, well done, good and faithful servant, to be acknowledged as a servant of the Most High in some manner. We long for that, but because of the fall, it's distorted now into vain glory, and hence we are vulnerable to this call. And here's the sirens telling Odysseus, you're the glory of the Greeks. And so we all want to be told we're the glory of our family, of our company, of our school, of our church. We want glory, but yet we're so vulnerable to vain glory.
Well, so again, we keep bringing up Dante. You were asking whether it's a good song
You
poetically. Well, Chris
go
too.
on, go on.
I love Dante. But, the song itself is 9 stanzas, right? That's the structure, that's the medieval structure, right? That's the 9 realms. So it's the 9
I hadn't even noticed
stanzas.
that. Thank you.
You have the trio, the 3, and there's the 3 lines, which would be like terza rima, but it doesn't rhyme, so it's aping the structure. You hear.
think she did all this on purpose? You think she's writing in response to Dante?
Yeah. Well, she's writing in response to knowing the tradition.
Yeah.
Because this is a tradition poem, right? So
fantastic.
she knows these things about the tradition.
Dang, she's smart.
You have the even the idea of aping the Trinity. I mean, I think she's intentionally aping the Trinity with the song and having, you say song 6 times, right?
Really?
9 times you call out to you, right? And so there's this aping of the 3, 6, 9 constantly throughout the poem that is doing something to us. It's mocking an order that our souls desire.
You're a good reader.
Thanks. It's my job.
No, that's not why you're a good reader. That was love. That was love that led to that. No, that was beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
And there is. It's a mocking. It's a mocking.
Mm-hmm.
As is and it's a mocking in the sense of making fun of, you could say, but also in the sense of being a cheap imitation, right? And that's what drives me again to when I've been thinking about knowledge and demons and all that sort of thing, and that to me is Genesis 3 and Genesis 11. With the serpent is clearly the evil one. He's diabolical. He's twisting himself around the tree and all that. And then when we come to Genesis 11, there's all these implications in there that instead of the temple, there's a tower, but the tower is a temple. And the tower is trying to assault heaven. It's trying to go into heaven. And it's mocking, right? And it's trying to get a kind of knowledge. And there's indications that this is very cultic and demonic, what's going on in this chapter. And so there is this, but I got to say this then, okay, about the demons. I don't even like using that word now, because when we talk about demons in our day and age, we see J.T. Schick tracks, or we see horns and stuff. We don't see principalities and powers. And when we look at the book of Revelation, we see demons as what they are, right? They're principalities and they're powers and they're awesome beings. and they can come down to earth, and apparently, whether it's ritualistically or whatever, they can convince people to engage in illicit relationships that lead to children that have great power. And those children then, whether that's metaphorical or literal, I don't know, but those children then can become the strong men in the world. And they give great power. They become the glory of the Greeks, right? Notice that all the Greek heroes are children of the gods. And ultimately, what are those gods? Right? And so we do have this cleverness, this twistedness of cunning created beings who are trying to destroy us and turn us into bleached skulls. And we have a vulnerability on our part that has been inserted into our souls from Genesis 3. And I think, to me, it's almost worth it just sitting there, not letting us move off the spot that says we have to come to terms with how deep our shame is. We have to come to terms with how embarrassed we are by who we are. We've got to come to terms with, I mean, you look on Facebook, if you guys do this and you see what are those called that come across the top of? Anyway, you see these things that people put up. And almost every time I do, and I admit I have too many friends on Facebook, but almost every time I do, some woman has put up something about body shaming. Why is that an issue? From the outside and the inside. Why is that an issue? Because we're broken. Why? I had to laugh when I think it was, I forget, some app decided that you can't advertising fat loss stuff anymore because it's body shaming. That's not going to stop people from buying it. Right? We're vulnerable people. I am ashamed of my body. I'll tell you that straight out. It doesn't work well. And less well as I age.
So what you're talking about right now is telling people things. And the difficulty is that telling people it doesn't change people, right? Especially when everyone's looking around them to only see what they want to see. If everyone has this broken vision, then you're not going to be able to convince them. They have deaf ears, they have blind eyes. And so here instead in the poem, you have almost like a practice session to hear and see differently, right? You're the person that she's talking to. And you get to hear what draws you in. How does it work? And now are you going to be led astray by the same thing when you go back into the world? Right? So it's actually getting to practice it the way you would like move a muscle and strengthen a muscle, instead of just someone telling you, don't listen to so-and-so, right? Don't be this way in the world. Notice the way she does the shall I tell you a secret? Like, there's a question.
Did not God say?
There's a secret, right? Like, only you and I are going to know this. Just between us. There's a complete, lack of openness.
Yes,
pretending to be open.
I still am chasing that. Because I'm still asking the question, why is that such an attractive pull for us when someone says, you can be a part of the inner circle. Mm-hmm. You can know the secret stuff. You can be a part of the secret knowledge. You will be accepted, and you alone, you're unique. Why is it when we hear...
Are you thinking of Mark Studdock?
No. I don't even know who Mark
That
Studdock
Hideous
is.
Strength.
I don't either.
The man in the Hideous Strength.
Okay, there you go, yeah.
And the name That Hideous Strength is from a poem about the Tower of Babel and the shadow that it casts.
Yeah, and, well, now you make me think of Lewis. He writes this essay called The Inner Ring, where he says, this is the great academic temptation, to want to get into the inner ring.
Absolutely.
And we all are pulled there. And it's true of some of you, isn't it? Some of you want to go out to dinner with Andrew Kern tonight, and you're wondering, how could I ever get an invitation to have a dinner with Andrew Kern? Well, he's inviting you all.
I'm pretty inexpensive.
And I remember, for example, going to my first conference as a young headmaster. It was the ACCS conference. And there are all these people around, and I didn't know hardly anyone. I'm trying to find my way. That's true of some of you. And you see people going out to dinner. The people have been in the circle for a while, and you're just trying to break in. I'd just love to have dinner with some of these people, get to know them. And you're wondering how to get in. And then if someone says, would you like to come to dinner with me tonight, Andrew Kern? we're going to go out to the husk tonight. We've got an extra seat. Would you like to come? You alone are being invited of all the people. And then we start to swell as if, my ship has come in. This is the great opportunity I've been dreaming for. Wait till I tell my friends at home I had dinner with Andrew Kern. Selfie.
The thing about it, I appreciate that you have such an excessive fondness for me, but I can remember this myself, that there's another gentleman here, I think, that in 1993 I met him at the first pre-ACCS conference, and I thought he was God incarnate. Right? He was talking about various things, but Homer is what I remember best, of course. And every word that he said sounded inspired, and I said, I have to know this person. But I was too shy. In the summer of 94, I timidly, walked up to him and I said, can I take you out for dinner? And he kind of chuckled and said, yeah. So I found the fanciest restaurant in Moscow, Idaho. Took
Carl's
him out.
Jr.
And you know what? He treated me like a little brother, kind of, because that's what I am to him, size and age-wise. And but he welcomed me into his divine presence. And from that day to this, I've never forgotten the feeling that it gives me to be welcomed like that. It's Wes Callahan. Where are you? Wes, where are you? Is he in here? See? That's how little he thinks of me.
He's having dinner with some friends.
Good. This is good. But isn't it true that like I talked about in the opening session about the dream, we have this dream of being seated at the banqueting table, and his banner over us is love, and he looks on us with adoration, and then he sees no wrinkles, and that's what our soul dreams of. Mm-hmm. But because it dreams of it and doesn't have it, it's vulnerable. We will give our souls to hear somebody say to us, well done, to our soul, to say that to our soul. And that's what the sirens are saying here.
Yeah. That's right. I think so.
That feels like such a good moment to end on, but I want to say one thing in defense of Atwood that I think is really important. The way that these songs work is they teach us to be like them in a negative way, right? To be parasites. And the way you fight against that parasitic, like, I want more, I need more, I'm important, and sucking the energy from everyone around you, is to instead be like Atwood, who reads Homer and creates in response to it, right? She gives back something that the poem gave to her. And I think that that's important for us to, if we're not poets, to be reciting these things, to be remembering these things, to not be the ones who can't remember the song, but to be the ones who pass the song on.
Sure hurt me. Well, that probably is time. So may the Lord remember you in his kingdom, and may you hear him say to you one day, well done, because that's the only one that will satisfy you.